It's good to be back. I want to thank you for the time you allowed me to take away last week. It was Katie's birthday a week ago Saturday, and we snuck away. It's not often that grandmothers come across the state, and so when they do, we like to get away just the two of us. And so we were afforded that gift, and you all were so gracious to let me skip a Sunday in order to enjoy some time away. We went up to Beaufort to a little bed and breakfast and just enjoyed a wonderful weekend away. I'm really coming to enjoy going to a bed and breakfast even more than a hotel. Because here's why. I'm a people watcher, okay? I love watching people, and by watching people, I mean I love eavesdropping on conversations if I can too, okay? I'm not the only one in the room who does that. I already know that. Some of you do too, but it's really fun. You ever thought about the fact that a hotel is often so large? Like you can people watch there, but they're so far away, you can't really watch them. But at a bed and breakfast, it's much smaller. And you eat breakfast together, and you can listen to the conversations at the table next to you. It's really fun. I have another confession that I need to make. There was one particular group, two couples, that just bugged me to death the whole weekend. I mean, I can be honest with you, right? Y'all been that kind of thing. You don't know the people, but just listening to them, they grind on your nerves a little bit. I don't know their names, okay, but let's just call them the overly Christian people, okay? Listen, I don't mind the banter about their Bible studies. That's good. I actually would hope some of you would talk about your small group experiences when you're out of church and out in public. That didn't bother me at all. The fact that they prayed before every meal didn't bother me either. That's probably something I should be doing more of out in public myself. That's nothing wrong with that. What got me was the constant talk about what's wrong with this generation and what's wrong with this such and such in the world and all these things is just the world's just going to hell in a handbasket kind of conversation. And just the constant negativity, the judgment that was just seeping out of their conversation. I just was sitting at the breakfast table just grinding on me all weekend long. I don't know why it bothered me so bad. Fast forward a couple of days, we went to annual conference this past week down at Jekyll Island. And I got to confess again, okay, my week was spent feeling some angst, okay? Now, I want to thank, you had me and Stacy there representing you all as your clergy. You had Fran and Bill Stanley as your lay delegates. Connie Bull was a district at-large delegate. Sam Watkins was there as one of our retired clergy, and Toby came along as a cheerleader. And so on the last day, we're sitting there. The bishop asked us to sit with our churches, and it was great. I loved having my crew around me, our Trinity posse, if you will, because that last day of the business session, first of all, you got to know this about annual conference. It is a lot of meeting, okay? It's like professional meeting attenders once a year get to come and make you sit all day long and listen to what they've been meeting about all year long. So it's like 8 to 5, long day of meetings. So that's one thing. But this year, mixed into that business session was conversation, which happens, it seems, every year, around the nature of inclusivity in the church. That's probably a good way to put it, those who were there. And the debate was a little hard to listen to. I'm just going to be honest with you. There are good-hearted, I assume good-hearted people who feel strongly that we should be one way and feel strongly we should be another way when it comes to being an inclusive church. The debate was hard to hear because out of their fiery passion came things that were downright mean. And what was even harder was not the people who spoke from the microphone. Those weren't too terrible, but it was where I could hear conversation behind me and around me, under people's breath about sinners this, and they should just leave the church, that kind of stuff. And that just, gotta be honest, I was glad to have my crew sitting around me because it gave me a little courage to sit there and listen. There was one guy who I walked to the back of the room and just turned red in the face. He wasn't speaking from a mic, but he's just reacting to the debate that's happening. And he says, well, they should just leave the church, and just took his cane and slammed it on the ground. Annual conference has this way of drawing emotions out of people, okay? It was a tough week because the truth is I found myself being bothered in both occasions by the notion that people of faith express their faith in mean ways. That happens. Did y'all know that? I think well-meaning people are so convicted with their faith and so sure that they are right that it comes out in a very mean and ugly way. To put another way, I spent a good part of this last week looking at the brokenness that is in our faith. And that's hard. I was thinking about the sermon coming up this Sunday and thinking about Mark 3, and a couple things kind of jumped out at me as I'm processing the week. Did you catch the fact that that scribes are there, but Mark tells us scribes from Jerusalem are there to immediately say that Jesus is filled with a demon, to condemn whatever Jesus is doing. Did y'all catch that? Here's what's interesting. If you go to the very beginning of Mark 3, and then again at the very beginning of Mark 4, we're located in some area by the sea. Beginning of Mark 3 says Jesus goes to teach by the sea. Beginning of Mark 4, he's teaching again by the sea. If you look at a map, the ancient Near Eastern world that Jesus lived in, Jerusalem, it says scribes from Jerusalem. Jerusalem is roughly 30 to 60 miles from the closest area by the sea. That's about how far off the sea Jerusalem is. 30 to 60 miles. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive 30 to 60 miles, I'm going to have an intention behind it. That's kind of a haul, right? I mean, you got to have a purpose. And in an age that people didn't have cars, you really got to have a purpose in mind if you're going to travel that far to do something. They went out of their way to condemn Jesus, made an extra effort, convicted by their faith, to go throw and hurl words of condemnation at him. And the truth is, there are people of faith today who love nothing more than to go out of their way, convicted with their rightness, to condemn whatever they don't agree with. That's the brokenness in our faith. Here's Jesus healing a man with a withered hand on the Sabbath, and here's Jesus hanging out with people that good religious people of faith, upstanding citizens, that you don't hang around with those people. But here he is nonetheless in ministry with them. His greatest crime was that he was violating that 11th commandment of the church, which is, thou shalt always do it the way we've always done it. You ever hear that in the life of the church? Someone has an idea, says, oh, no, now, that's not the way we've always done it. Oh, no, that's not the way we've always done it. And Jesus is breaking those rules. And the religious people don't like their notion of rightness to be threatened. He's filled with a demon. He's mentally ill, as he's accused in the very beginning of that chapter. There's something obviously wrong with him. That person doesn't represent the faith that I ascribe to. No. And they come to condemn him. Travel, nonetheless, to do it. One of the hard things about being right, I think, is that we can be right and still be wrong about it. Do you hear what I'm saying? You can take a stance on an issue or a position or whatever it is, and you can be absolutely right. But to do so with a spirit full of meanness and to be ugly about it and condemn others and pass judgment, doesn't matter how right you are, you're wrong. And the sad truth is, there's a brokenness in the world of faith, that somehow through our convictions, we just assume, people of faith assume that we're right about everything. And if we don't agree with it, they're wrong. It's tough to kind of look that in the face this week, that brokenness. But as I was processing my week, this really wonderful, somebody shared this picture, a quote from Madeleine L'Engle this week. I love her. She's a wonderful writer. Kind of reminded me of what faith is all about. She says, paraphrasing here, but she says, people are not drawn to the love of Christ by you telling them that what they believe is wrong, or by you telling them how right you are. She says, people are drawn to the love of Christ because you show them a light that's so lovely that they just want to know the source of it. People are not drawn to our faith because we're right about everything. They're drawn because there's something beautiful that somebody sees, a light. Which led me to the next step in my processing a week of ugly Christians. The truth is this, that brokenness lives in me too. That moment, that man, I don't know who he is, I'm sure he's a kind man. In his moment of passion, they should just leave the church. Do you know what my gut reaction was? My gut reaction, almost in my head, I thought, you should leave the church. In that moment, I gave in to that brokenness, that meanness, that ugliness. Jesus talks about blasphemy, which is to dishonor God, blasphemy in Mark 3. I think one of the greatest blasphemies of our time might be tribalism. Do you know what that is? Tribalism. It's this notion that my group, my faith, my family, my country, you fill in the blank, that whatever, I love it so much that I'm totally against anything that's not included. That I love whatever group I'm a part of, and I feed off of that because we're against this thing over here. That's tribalism. And to love anything, any group so much that we are led to hate someone or someones or whatever the group is in return, that is not the will of God. Sometimes I wish it were because it's easy and I like it. I get enjoyment off being against something. I don't know about y'all. Kind of gets your blood pressure up a little bit, gets your heart pumping, feel alive. But when we do that, we are not doing the will of God. There's a brokenness that lives in all of us. And the truth is, in my angst over these well-meaning people in Buford or these other Methodists down in Jekyll Island at annual conference, in all of my angst, because they bothered me so bad, I'm afraid that maybe that light that Madeline Lingle's talking about went a little dim in my own life. That in getting upset about it, hurling judgment back because I feel so vindicated for being right, the light of Christ grows a little dim in our life. And that's tough. We all carry a sense of brokenness. Leonard Cohen tells us the good news, though, that the broken places are where the light can shine through. And so maybe the good news today, is this: in acknowledging our own brokenness, we can sort of balance out our rightness with humility. That we can be right and not hate someone we disagree with. That we can stand up for what's good and not throw ugliness back at someone. I've got a friend who gave me this saying a few weeks ago. I just love it. He said, Ben, I always find when people throw mud at me, it doesn't stick. But the moment I pick up mud to throw, I can't get it off my hands. There's nothing in the life of faith that says we should dislike someone else. And I know in our righteousness and our rightness we want to, because we are convicted that what we think, what we believe, what we're doing is right. That's a good feeling. But we balance it with a humility that reminds us that person, that group, whatever that is that we're against, they're made in the image of God too. Sometimes I don't like it because I don't want people that I don't like to be part of God's family. Jesus' own family tries to remind him the importance of family. You're with us. This is our tribe. And he says, these people, these broken people. I love that scene if you think about it. These broken people Jesus is sitting with. These people that are deemed unclean, not fit to be in ministry with. You're breaking the rules for hanging out with them. He's sitting with them. They're his family. Religious folks don't always like them. They're different. They stick out. They're unclean. But he's sitting with them. The choir is saying these beautiful words, matchless grace reaches even me. Those are powerful words to hear in light of our brokenness. That the matchless grace of God reaches even me. And if it reaches even me, then maybe it also reaches them, those people, the ones we don't always like, the ones we don't agree with. That matchless grace reaches them too. That's the good news. That in all of our brokenness, there is a light so lovely that wants nothing more than to shine through us. And this light doesn't ask us to be right or to feel vindicated or to stand up to this, that, or the other and judge somebody else for not agreeing. That light is what calls us to love, to have humility, to stand even in the face of someone, something that doesn't agree with us or like us, and say, we don't have to come to any agreement, but you are a child of God too. Oh, that's so hard to say for people that I don't like. But they are. That matchless grace, that lovely light reaches even me, even them, even all of us. Amen. Hey, thanks for watching the latest sermon here at historic Trinity Church in Savannah, Georgia. I'm Reverend Ben Gosden. I'm the senior pastor here at Trinity Church. And I want to take this opportunity to invite you. If you're ever in Savannah, Georgia, we would love for you to visit us on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. We're located on Telfair Square, been here since 1848. Also, you can check out the comments below for a way to give if you feel so led. Again, you're welcome anytime here at Trinity Church.